So today's guest first wanted to be a doctor, but then life redirected him into molecular biology. An All India ranker, not once, not twice, that too at the same number, which is number 9. He completed his PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru Center of Advanced Scientific Research and built deep expertise in enzymology and structural biology. Currently a principal scientist and R&D lead at an Indian biotech startup called DXDT. Today's guest is Dr. Ashutosh. I will be calling him Ashutosh in the next couple of questions that I have for him. And with that, I'm going to immediately jump into the question that has been coming to my mind as I was understanding his career trajectory, which was how did he dare to take a 3 years career gap right after finishing his PhD, which is considered such a big taboo? So, Ashutosh, welcome to the Smartdom PhD podcast. I need an answer to that question. We are starting right there.
Yeah, sure, Nima. Firstly, thank you so much for that kind introduction. I'm no expert in any field. One thing I've realized while doing PhD is that you keep improving as time moves along. You do your best to be in the best shape possible to, in any way contribute to wherever you're working. So that's one thing. I've done my best, hopefully. And speaking about the career break, I didn't expect that question to be asked first, honestly. So it happened towards the back end of my PhD, Rima. So mostly, all of my batchmates, all of my juniors, all of my seniors, if I have to look at them, all of them have flown away. They are all at different parts of the world. And it's almost seems like it's a norm, isn't it? Once you're done with your PhD, you have to apply for your postdoc and you have to keep moving. And then, you either return back as a candidate worthy enough to be a prof in one of the institutes, or you be a floating postdocs around. It seems more or less like a norm. So at that juncture, I was sort of like very confused. I didn't know if I had to take the same trajectory. I didn't know about industry either at that point. But one thing I knew was that all throughout my life I had been like sort of on the move, working very hard, to even crack the entrance exam to get into PhD in the first place. And as I got into PhD, I had a very good profile. Lucky for me, I published good number of papers, saw good number of protein structures. So everything was going well, but there was this sense of feeling that I've never had time for myself. So I dared to think about doing something, outrightly crazy that would give some bit of meaning to my life. So one of it is travel. I always enjoy traveling. Just that being from Karnataka, I'm born and raised in Bangalore. So I've traveled all around Karnataka, but I haven't seen much of our own country. So I thought it'd be nice if I can take a 2 to 3 year break. It's all right. I can always get back to work. I've earned my PhD. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to find a job somewhere. That was what was running in my head at that time. And yeah, so that's how I decided to sort of travel the entire country. And I was also a cyclist. I have represented India in triathlons in an Ironman 70.3 event. If you don't know what that is, you swim for 1.4 kilometers, follow it up with a 90-kilometer bicycle ride, and then run a half marathon, which is 21 kilometers. So I was mostly active, and I loved cycling for most half of whenever I was training for this event. So I thought I'll do something crazy, take my bicycle out and travel the entire country on it. And lucky for me, I pulled through. That's one bit of it. But never in this entire process of wanting to do such a thing did I ever think that, okay, there's a taboo around it. Maybe if I return back, I may never be able to find a job. And that is what helped me a lot, Rima. If I had, it ever did cross my mind that on my return, I'd be in some sort of a jeopardy, I would not have taken that leap of faith. But good for me that I did it. And now I do understand that it's not really a big deal taking a career break. If you are really standing for who you are, if you know your true skill sets, I'm pretty sure you know all this better, of course, but I can only say with whatever experience I've had that if you really know what your true skill sets are, if you really trust in your potential and you know what your deliverables are, let me put it that way, then it surely can put you in the right place as a right fit. That's something I realized. So that's about my career break. But just to add on to it, Rima, when I was back, it didn't take more than 2 months for me to land this job. That's
I
because,
will come back to that, Ashutosh,
all
okay?
right,
But I
sure,
want to
sure, sure.
continue on the career break thing because you
Yeah,
said that it didn't cross your mind that it could be a taboo and all of that, right? I believe
yeah,
at times it's also the environment that catches on to us. Sometimes maybe it's our family members also and professors also who might say, our 3 years of career break, you're going, like, have you thought what will happen? So did all those judgments come your way? What did your family tell you? And how is it? Like, was the environment supportive, not supportive? This comes from my own
yeah.
experience. My family was neither supportive nor, not support, like neither supportive nor encouraging because they didn't know how this would pan out, right? It's a complete U-turn. So that's the reason I'm asking you this question, Ashutosh.
Right, I get it. So I get this question asked all the time, Dreama,
Yeah,
through a different lens, of course, not the scientific lens, because everybody is like, how did your family let you go?
yeah,
That's one of
right.
the
Yeah.
questions. And not just that, I mean, you added a different perspective to it, which is that, especially when you have your colleagues and your seniors and juniors
Who are already
who are all
moving
following the
outside,
norms.
right? And you've
Correct,
already
correct,
had
correct.
one opportunity at
I
UK
did.
to move out.
Yeah,
Despite that, you
yeah.
did this. So, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, most of the people who have known me, they have known me to be this really hard working kind of guy. Today, Sunday, I'm still sitting at the office.
Hmm.
I am a workaholic in a major sense.
Hmm.
So they've seen me really work hard. They didn't have an answer. They couldn't be like, oh no, you should still be continuing to do what you have to, because at the end of the day, after having worked so hard, done so much, and when they truly know that I do deserve a gap in my life for all that I have done,
Yeah,
they can't go against your thoughts and ideologies, you see. So that's the way it was for family and friends. I'd say mostly family, because they have seen me for all that I have done, and they really didn't want to, like, take away this one bit of um, uh, what would you say, adventure that was left in me.
right.
So
Yeah,
probably they had no option, and put it this way.
yeah,
The rest of it was all on me. I didn't take anything to heart. I didn't take anything seriously, even if some people did, including my prof and a couple of people. They were wondering how it would be if, like, I went on a break and came back. Would I be able to cope up with the fast-paced world? And all those
right.
questions were always on.
Yeah,
But somehow I didn't take it to heart, Rima. I
yeah.
just was very glued to my idea of wanting to take that break and enjoy that break thoroughly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I truly admire you for that. And my question still comes back to this. What is the one thing that you learned in this 3 years journey of cycling across India that you also carry to your work? Is there anything?
Yes, definitely. I'd say, even before we started this conversation, I was letting you know this. I'm only going to speak honestly what I feel, and
Yeah,
that's
right.
what I've inculcated in my behavior, Rima. Honesty. And honesty helps a lot. I'm not saying that people are dishonest. I'm not saying that.
Hmm.
But people do not know to be honest. I think this has to be marked. This is something people should understand,
Hmm.
because there are several times where we know we deserve a lot,
Hmm.
and that's where we need to remain honest to ourselves. We have to speak that out to people. We have to be we have to communicate honestly that this is what I think. And
Hmm.
most of the times we are not honest enough in communicating whatever we feel within.
Hmm.
That's something I'd say I'm truly carrying it forward for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
It's there in every walk of life, I would say.
Hmm.
And that very honesty also is helping me when I meet the clients, or it helped me landing up the job. It helps me navigate life. It
Hmm.
helps me probably do better in my career.
Hmm.
So it may seem very what do you say,
Cliche
insignificant to you, but I'd say,
or no
yeah,
cliche
cliche
or
more than I think
obvious. Yeah,
too obvious.
but
But
it's
that's the
not.
beauty. Obvious
Yeah,
things are
yeah,
really powerful.
right,
It's really
right.
powerful. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, think of it. I want to ask you one thing. You have been helping so many PhD students get along, land jobs, be there in the interviews, attend the interviews, and fare well, of course.
Right.
So, don't you think honesty plays a very large role in them landing the job when they have to clear the interview?
Absolutely, I would agree
Yeah,
to
they do.
that. And one thing is, honesty is very important. And also, I think one thing you have to know is sometimes when you're interviewing with interviews, you need to know how to frame it properly at times. Okay. So you cannot be 100% honest about everything, right? Like you're coming from academia, right? So you cannot say that I'm from academia, hence I did publications there. I don't know how does it translate over here. That study you have to do and connect the dots, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not being
yeah,
honest. Okay. I believe that's being
yeah.
lazy. So absolutely, I tell all of my PhD community members to be honest right from their resume to LinkedIn to the interview, because that creates an impression. So yes,
Yeah.
Ashutosh, always honesty is important. But again, there's a layer of complexity where you need to know what is honesty. I think is also contextual, because
Right.
sometimes people are not ready for the entire truth because they do not know the entire picture, and that is the time where you give an information not in its entirety but to the extent they can take. I believe so. And after that, when they know you very well, maybe then you can share the entire information because they know you for your skill sets and everything. And now they won't judge you for your honesty. So that part is also there, but it does come in sometimes. I don't know if you have experienced that or not, Ashutosh.
At least for me in my life, it's been like very helpful
Always
in being
100%
honest. So
honesty.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 100%
Okay.
honesty. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll circle back to now after your career break, Shutosh. You said that if you are aware of your true skill sets and you trust in your potential, then it's not going to matter if you have a career break, right? So, how did
Good.
you know what are your true skill sets are? And why did you have so much trust in your potential?
Wow, what a brilliant question to ask. This is something that I figured out along the way. The skill sets need not be particularly about the things you have learned in your PhD, Dima, and I'm pretty sure you know that as well.
Hmm.
During my PhD, I'd say some of the strongest skills I developed was solving structure of proteins.
Okay.
Protein structure solution is done through two particular ways, mostly three. The third one is less chosen choice, which is NMR spectroscopy, but otherwise it's through X-ray crystallography and cryo-electron microscopy.
Hmm.
And both of it are going to stay as long as humans are alive. So that is something that I had picked up, and I was so good at it that I helped solve many protein structures at the laboratory wherever I did my PhD. So
Yeah.
that's something I am the master at. I'm still, very good at, of
Hmm.
course, but I never considered that as my skill set.
Yeah.
People consider these things that they have learned as techniques.
Right.
And these are the things they think that are their skill sets, but that's not the real skill set. The underlying skill set of it all is who you are as a person. If you're a quick learner, the value of, again, all these things now sound really cliche to you, I'm pretty sure, but you stand up for yourself
Yeah.
when situations comes by. Are
Hmm.
you really hardworking, or are you, a person who takes one project at a time and puts everything into it and then takes a large gap and enjoys for yourself? Like, it depends, what are your skill sets truly?
Hmm.
And even on my LinkedIn page, if you have looked at it, I've mentioned all the top 7 skill sets I have. And in those skill sets, I have clearly figured out for myself that, I mentioned that standing up and speaking for myself. Yeah.
Hmm.
And honesty is also one of the skill sets I have. In when the situation demands,
Hmm.
I won't run away from the problem.
Hmm.
And wherever I am, I like to have that place. You know, as in, when people are around me, I'd like to have people around me work as a team. And it's just a small skill set, but it has great value to it. So these are things I already knew. For example, when I joined here, I didn't join here with the skill set of X-ray crystallography. I
Right.
joined here with the skill set of being a capable R&D lead. So I can lead a team. I
Yeah.
can make sure that whatever the problem is, I can get the problem done. I can
Right.
make sure it can be solved. So
Yeah.
that was the skill set I entered with. These are the skill sets I'm speaking about, and I was very confident on them. I'm still very confident on them. I'm pretty sure wherever I go in the world, I can stand up for myself and say, this is something I'll get done because of whatever skill sets I have. I mean, if there's a problem that needs those skill sets, I'm always there. And I'm not running away from the problem. And that is quite a hell of a promise to make. So these things I always banked on. If it was necessary that I needed to learn cryo-electron microscopy to solve protein structures, I do it. It's not a
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way
So,
it is.
so that again makes me curious. Where do you think you picked up these traits from? Because this comes from the fact that what you become, a part of it is also the kind of people mentored you. So,
True.
Ashutosh, would you agree? Because during our PhD, we are like spending almost 5, 6, 7 years, we don't know how many, with the mentor, the only mentor, right? And what they do 24/7 in their research kind of shapes our mindset also and what we might do in future. Okay. It might shape us in a good way, it might shape us in a bad way too. We might not know the impact until we move past the PhD. So,
True,
do you
very.
think that the mentors played a role in you picking up these traits and skill sets?
I'd say definitely so. It's always a 50-50, Rima. It's always prof and student. It's never only student or only prof.
Right.
My prof, if fantastic lady, great amount of work, very good human being. If you ask, I shouldn't be, speaking of it like this on a podcast, which she could also listen to someday. But then if you ask some group of people, they'd say, no, I had a tough time. Some group will say, oh no, I had a fantastic time with her. So I belong to the latter. I had a fantastic time with her. 50% was her, 50% was me. In the
Right.
sense that, let's say, my prof wanted me to do something
Yeah.
which I didn't want to do. And
Right.
I wanted to do something which my prof didn't want to do. It's
Right.
always a trade off. You do
Yeah.
something for her that you don't want doing. And
Yeah.
then you ask her if you can do something that she doesn't want you doing. That's the
Right.
way it is. Always a trade off. And there comes several circumstances in your PhD, Lima, where it's a relationship that you have built with your prof,
Right.
where it requires you to plow through also tough situations. And going back to the original question, to answer the original question whether mentor plays a role or not, they definitely do. And um, half of the role played is also about you. Are you able to cope up with them? If you're able to cope up with the prof very well, it's bound to happen that both of you are going to go a long way. That's what happened, I'd say. I picked up these skill sets because my prof also many a times would have been hard on me. I don't come in knowing everything. Obviously, I'm fresh off a master's student.
Right.
Doing PhD, you need to pick up a lot of techniques that will require a lot of reading, a lot of understanding, and she has the expertise on it. There's no doubt. So if I didn't learn, obviously I wouldn't make it. And if she didn't teach, also I wouldn't make it. So it has to go both ways.
Yeah, yeah. So it has to be the ownership which comes from the student also and from the
Yes,
mentor also,
yes,
right?
yes. And then it will form a beautiful relationship. And in that process, definitely skill sets will be picked. Skill sets will be picked up.
Okay. Now let's shift gears a bit and ask you about the fact that you told that many of your PhD friends are outside India, right? So, PhD gives us this huge scope to go outside India. And many PhD students pursuing PhD in India are very excited about that scope of pursuing postdoc outside India because you get a scope to live and experience the culture and all of that. But then over time, they realize that they are getting stuck in a loop of postdoc, which is like a stopgap solution, and it's not taking you anywhere. Okay. So, Ashutosh, what do you feel about doing PhD in India or postdoc in India versus doing it outside? What do you think is the motivation that pushes people to, try for postdoc outside India?
Just yesterday, I caught up with one of my friends from my institute, JNC. I was speaking with her, and I was speaking about all her batchmates, how they're doing. They were my friends as well, of course. They're all my
Yeah,
juniors. And
yeah,
she said of the 7 group batch, it's only her and another chap who are planning on finding a job, and the rest of the 5 of them are going to go for postdocs.
hmm,
The trend is still on. That has not changed at all. People
right,
want to have
right,
that flavor and taste of want to go abroad.
right.
One thing that worked out very well for me, Rima, was that because I took a break, I did notice that many of my seniors and colleagues, like, batchmates, they all flew, they're doing their postdocs already. I got to speak with them, I got to hear from them, I got to understand what they're going through.
Hmm,
And it's definitely becoming a thing right now. Floating postdocs, I
hmm,
call them floating postdocs. They go on doing postdocs in different laboratories. It seems like around 4 to 5 years of time after the PhD,
hmm,
there is the 4 to 5 year period seems very safe.
hmm, hmm,
Post that is when that question crops in. Coming back to India, you're going to be underpaid. Staying back is okay, but then you don't know how long you're going to stay back. And getting a professor position is hard. And these things definitely exist.
hmm,
But if somebody is terribly, terribly good, they're definitely going to make it. They're going to come back. They're going to get a faculty position. All that's going to happen. But what about the rest? We are speaking about the Gaussian distribution, not
yes,
the extremities.
yes,
So for most of them, it's that way. And if I had to question myself, even on returning back, if I
yeah,
wanted to go and do a postdoc,
hmm,
it didn't feel too appealing for me all of a sudden. For the experience of it, going abroad, seeing a different nation is all good. But at the end of the day, personally speaking, for me, it didn't seem so appealing.
hmm,
To go out for a postdoc for the sake of the experience of the postdoc. So I would say this is a very key question you have asked. It's very important for anybody, any student who is choosing to go for postdoc to understand if they're going for postdoc,
hmm,
to have the experience of living in a different country, to experience how it is to do science outside of India,
hmm,
or is it that they are very serious and they want to jump up the ladder to finally end up as a faculty? That's
hmm.
a very key question to ask, Rima, and this is my couple of cents on the topic.
Yeah, you mentioned it as floating postdoc, and I call it the postdoc waiting room. Okay. You go
Waiting room
in,
all day.
yeah, you go in, and then like after 4 or 5 years, you feel that saturation hitting, that there's nowhere that I can go now. I have to figure out what I really want to do. And then when you lose so much time in the postdoc waiting room, that's when it gets even harder. That, okay, where exactly do I fit in, right? And this is where I come back to the fact that most of the faculty jobs will not be at par, like you mentioned, the way you want it to be. But that's where industry comes in, because that's where the number of opportunities right now are more than the faculty opportunities, right? So, coming
Yeah.
back to industry, Ashutosh, what do you feel now that you are a principal scientist and an R&D lead? What do you felt is different in industry than from academia?
Oh, this is a completely different world. You see,
Yeah.
academia and industry are uh, like day and night. They are worlds apart. That's what I'd say.
Hmm.
Academia is fun in its own way. Industry is fun in its own way when it comes to working. Working wise, you're going to have fun in both places. There's no doubt, as long as you enjoy working, that is, of course.
Hmm.
But one of the major differences, I'd say, from where I stand, at least with regard to firstly, Rima, I have to make it clear that I'm not working in an industry per se. I'm in a startup.
Hmm.
So I love this startup culture, essentially. People are on their toes, they're running, they want to, achieve something. That's where startups come from. Industries are a much larger group.
Hmm.
It's more like a multinational company in which, all of the pipelines are laid out and you're going to be another brick in the wall. That's the way
Yeah.
I view it.
Yeah.
Although I'm not, authorized to speak of it that way because I
Yeah.
haven't been there, but
Yeah.
that's the way I always saw it. But in startup, there is no fixed role.
Right.
you are supposed to take up the roles that are that where there's a void and you can fill it up if you have the skill sets. Now we come back to the skill sets, right?
Yeah.
I'm an R&D lead, but why should I be going and meeting the clients? That's something you can ask, but I love doing it because I've understood the psychology of people traveling. That's where it has helped me. This is where things come by, of how to interact with people, how to understand what is in the mind of the person who is sitting in front of you, and to be able to articulate yourself and give them the space to articulate themselves is something that's a bit of a skill. And that has allowed me to take that role also within a startup. So,
Right.
especially in these sort of conditions where you have different roles you can take up based on your skill sets, it's a lot of room for growth, Reema. There's a lot of room for growth. In academia, you have one problem that you have chosen and you're all in on that one problem that you have chosen. And that's the way it is. It's all nice. I have no complaints, but both are worlds apart. I can't pick on one thing and say, "Oh, this is better than the other." They're beautiful in their own ways.
Yeah. I think through this answer, we touched on two things. Number one, you said that academia is, I talk about depth and breadth. So academia is high on depth, right? And
Very well put.
yes, so when you're going so deep, what happens is you become very narrowed in your skill sets. And that's where the sweet spot comes, where you need the depth, of course, but you need to understand that the sweet spot is somewhere between the kind of breadth you have and also the depth you have. So industry gives you the opportunity to explore that breadth while going deep, right? And if you are a person with this open mindset, eyes open and alert, you will see that there are so many opportunities that you can step into and step up to learn and
Truly.
grow in many other ways. On that note, I want to come back to your this travel thing that taught you about psychology and that you're bringing into this space in the industry, right? So many times people, like especially we being scientists and coming from the STEM background, we have boxes in our head, right? We don't want to cross the boxes. Like, Ashutosh, are you there?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, you were frozen for a moment.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm able to hear you.
Yeah, we have these boxes in our head that, oh, this is not connected, that is not connected. But here you're connecting your travel to how that's coming in, how that is teaching you about, how to build better relationships. So can you talk about that? Like why people should get into something very different from what they have done in their PhD and how that might or might not help them, but might help them grow in very different ways.
I'm not really sure if I can answer that very well because I truly believe that each one is built very differently, and I totally agree with you on that. Boxes in the mind, I can feel it as you speak about it, but it may be different for different people. So on that front, I am not sure I'm very well equipped to answer because it was a unique case for me. I can only speak in my on my front because I have experienced it. Like I told you, I'm mostly an introvert that way. But traveling, you get to speak with so many people, and all of a sudden you are exposed to so many different mindsets, and you understand slowly with time where the person who is standing in front of you is coming from. That's the part I picked up, and that is what I'm bringing to the table over here. But how is it that somebody can pick up these skill sets outside of what they're already doing is something I can't bring out from the top of my mind as of now. I can only say that traveling definitely helps because I've seen it, I've witnessed it, go around, and also, if I have to add to that, a sabbatical break in general helps, Rima. It helps you get out of your mind firstly. Most of the times we are so held up in our own thoughts. You see, okay, I'm done with this. I have to do that next, and then after that there has to be something. There has to be a buffer period. This is all I'm expected of, and you don't get outside of that headspace at all. Probably you already have some skill sets, and how do you figure that out? What your skill sets are. I'd say a career break in general must somehow help, and it's left to people to choose what they like doing in that career break. It'll give them that mental space to sort of get out of this network so that they can approach it fresh.
Yeah.
not in the very stale way they have been doing it all their lives. So
Yeah.
probably that should help. Yeah,
Okay. Okay, I'll come back to one more question which you mentioned about. It's understanding the psychology of people, Ashutosh. Okay.
yeah.
So for you to grow in industry, say lead teams, how important is it to understand the psychology of people? And how does that help you?
Immensely helpful, immensely necessary also.
Hmm.
Anybody who has to grow in their lives in general, I'd say, not just on the professional scale but also on the personal front, it's very important to understand psychology, Rima. It works in everyday life. Let's say there is I'll pick off a few examples just to speak, because I'll take one example where somebody is working with me,
Hmm.
and I'll take one example where I'm supposed to report back to somebody working, somebody with whom I am working. Okay,
Right.
so
Yeah.
let's say somebody working with me. I ask them to do something, and then I notice that there is a bit of a lag, there is a bit of a laziness, or there's a bit of a disinterest.
Hmm. Hmm.
Most people, what they do is they tend to come up from a point where they try to reinforce, they try to push the person into doing the work. But then, having understood psychology, you can sort of take the step back and understand where they are coming from. Like, where
Hmm.
is that laziness coming from? Where is that inhibition coming from? Where is that disinterest coming from? And then you can, sort of sit with them, speak with them, make them understand.
Hmm.
If it is that the topic is hard, they're working on, they're not understanding, you can help them understand it better. If there's something they're going through that they're not able to keep the mind on the work, you
Hmm.
can sort of give them the space,
Hmm.
and whatever way you approach it to solve that tiny tad bit of a problem, that underneath lying current, which is the psychology. If you fix that, over and above that, everybody is going to be happy, and people perform far better when they are happy.
Hmm.
That's the way it is. And when it comes to somebody with whom I'm working, let's say I'm reporting, it's that you can take an instance where I have not been able to generate results. It so happens, science is such.
Right.
Some days good, some days bad,
Yeah.
some days positive, some days negative.
Hmm.
So I can also understand how is it that I can pitch the negative results,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I can pitch the same negative results in a positive way, saying,
Yeah.
had we not understood this, we
Yeah.
might have been in a fix. That's a positive approach to a negative problem.
Hmm.
So, this is all a very, these are things that lie under the umbrella of psychology, I'd say.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
somebody can overcome fear,
Hmm.
somebody can overcome hardships, somebody can overcome difficulties
Hmm.
only through the way they think. I mean, if you can keep a very good mindset and allow others around you also to keep a very good mindset, then you have done a fantastic job. And that comes only through psychology, only through psychology. To
Right.
have
Yeah.
yours and people around you, their mindset, all in the most functional state, in the best functional state. The moment somebody gets cranky, you know that the work is going down the drain.
Yeah.
And you should
Yeah.
allow them to be cranky, of course, but always keeping in control that, always having that aura around you, showing that we have it all in control. Don't worry.
It's good
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
And I'll come back to that saying that I call it empathy, understanding people from where they are
Right.
and not judging them
Yeah.
from where you are, right? So that's empathy
Precisely.
again, right? And I'll come back to this thing, this negative positive thing you mentioned about. That's what I was speaking about. Like that is honesty, where you're framing
Yeah.
things in a way where people are more receptive to it, even though it might have some negative results. That's where PhDs sometimes don't understand the nuances of it and say it so bluntly that it's not received the way it should be. That's where I was talking about honesty. Okay, Ashutosh. Now, you did speak about psychology of people. What do you think if people did a secret survey on the people that you are managing under you? What would they say about you?
I hope they speak well about me.
Okay, what is the one word you think they might say about you?
Probably they'll say that I'm lost in my own world. I don't know, because most of the time I'm focused on work, making
Yeah.
sure that they're happy at the same time. We know the most important thing is giving credits where credits is due. For me, I know that any project I'm heading, I'm going to pull it through. I have that confidence, that's the skill set. But now that these people who are working with me have been involved in the project and we have pulled through that project, which we have on multiple occasions. We have closed down 3 projects in 6 months. That's a hell lot of a thing to close. 3 projects in 6 months is like what, one in 2 months. So I can take the credits, of course, but I should also give the credits. People have worked with me to make it happen as well. So first thing is, I always make sure to praise the team. They have done a fantastic job. We have done a fantastic job. So I think that's Rima, the fact that everybody is in high spirits because things are working and they're also getting their due share of credits is keeping them going. That's what I believe. Again, from whatever I understand with my ability in understanding other psychology, I feel that they're in high spirits.
Okay, okay. On that note, again, Ashutosh, coming back to PhDs, what do you feel like? Where is the PhD thing going with AI coming into the picture? And, like when I did my PhD, there was no AI. I had to go do so much literature survey, which took so much time and all of that. Now with AI around, which can write your complete thesis and everything, where can PhDs stay relevant with these massive shifts happening across in the way we function and show up for work?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll split this, the answer to this question into two parts, Rima. Okay. So one is the question, I'll come to the answer to the question directly, which is that will AI, sort of take away jobs of people in the future because, it's getting integrated quite heavily. I personally, again, like I told you, I'm not very equipped to speak on this front because this is the honesty. Again, I don't know much, but I can only speak based on what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing. So I'd say that the answer to that question definitely no, because nobody can take away our skill sets at the end of the day. What I'm saying is, let's say there is another chap who is competing with me in the very job that we are doing. And the chap is more equipped to handle AI. Let's say I'm speaking especially in the life science front, and he's equipped to key in the questions properly, get out the answers probably from the AI. I would still say that I'm way ahead of that person just because of the major skill sets I have acquired. Apart from using AI, which is the other skill set that he has, that I'll truly, drop saying that, that won't happen anytime in the future because what do you say? There are so many things that you have to understand through your theoretical knowledge, be able to link many things in your mind when it comes to biology. At least it's too hard for somebody to be able to know. I don't believe a master's student can come utilize AI to full potential, learn everything like a PhD student would have grasped all throughout his PhD and sort of take away his job. That's impossible. That's not happening anytime soon. Again, that's my personal opinion. So if it does happen, I'll be damned. That's one thing. But the other thing, Rima, I was telling you, the whole of when I completed my PhD, it was 2022 September, right? And fast forwarded to 2025, 2026. We didn't use the AI platform back in the days. We didn't know much about it. We were very equipped to sort of proofread our own manuscript. We were equipped to key in the references ourselves. We were equipped to look for the references ourselves. Whatnot. We were more skilled that way. I'd say with AI coming in, people are losing out on these skill sets, especially the skill set to speak and write. Come on, I mean, you must have a very good language, right? We are able to converse today because we have decent language. And then if we have to converse over a mail, we still need to have a decent language, the ability to write. But who in these days tend to write themselves? I find very few people do it. And people are losing out on their skill sets, is what I'd say, based from the point of view of AI coming in. People are losing out on their skill sets. I'd say it's very important. It's definitely good to use the platform where it is there for our disposal, for our needs, for where it is a problem that can be easily cracked, all that is fine. But using it on an everyday basis for the trivial and the most trivial of stuff is going to only take away our skill sets, is what I feel, Rima. I'd say don't you go behind, mastering AI. I'd say struggle for getting the subject matter that you're studying or working on deeply, so that you will be able to use AI to your good use when it does, when the situation does arrive.
So, Ashutosh, can you give us some quick use cases of how you are integrating AI into your work?
I'm old school. I don't use AI. I don't want to be against AI. I didn't want to make myself feel that way. So I still continue to read a lot of papers. I pull out the material myself. I design the protocols with whatever is in the paper. I never went to the, even the search bar of the AI. It somehow feels very awkward for me to do that. And I traveled India at the best period of my life, best period of, humanity, I would say, because that's when the AI boomed. That's when everybody got into it. It felt for people as though if they didn't use it, they were missing out on something. And I was traveling with hardly anything with me, hardly a phone. I didn't ever use AI. So I've come to this point where everybody is using it and I'm not using it, and it feels great, honestly, because I'm still able to get my job done without the AI. You see, it's all working. 3 projects closed in 3 months is not bad without a single search on AI. It's also, I am not against it. Like I'm telling you, there are certain circumstances where I do believe that it will make your life easy. I don't want my life so easy. I solved it, but that's a personal point of view. One is okay with using it, but using it for the most trivial of trivial stuff is going to rip out the skill sets from you, Rima. That's what I feel. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Ashutosh, also, how do you see the biotech environment in India right now? Okay. I see that it's a lot better than like 10 years ago. And I see that there's a lot of scope in biotech and for life sciences student. Can you please validate that or let me know anything more that people working in life sciences should know about what are the scope available for them after PhD in life sciences in India?
Again, I can speak about whatever I know only. So I will tell you about the startup front. Okay, I'll tell you what the available, like what possibilities are there in the startup front, not in the industries front, because I'm not equipped to speak about it. Although I'm pretty sure that it is not necessarily as bad as people claim it to be. Obviously, there's a dearth of jobs. There is no doubt about it that there's a lack of jobs, of job opportunities. But in the startup front, Rima, now I'll get to the point what I want to speak, which is that it is an unexplored territory. Let me put it that way. Startups are an unexplored territory. We Indians, especially academicians in India, we are not trained to think in the way of business. We are not trained to think about how our knowledge can be put into products. Period. That's the way it is. And it's unfortunate because there is a whole world of opportunities out there. Oh my God, should I tell you that, everything we have that we use in life science laboratories, starting from the simplest of simplest salts to the bare minimal of kits like DNA extraction, RNA extraction, whatever it may be. These are trivial stuff. If you ask any PhD student if they could design it, they'd say, yeah, but what do I get out of it? Why should I go for it? It isn't really hard, but that's not what I want to do. My skill sets are something else. I can solve protein structures. I can do X-ray crystallography. But what is so? It's not a big deal to sort of make a polymerase enzyme. That's what they'd say. Then why not do it? I'd say we don't have Indian products in the market at all, Rima. We import everything. Thermo, Takara, Amplicon, name it. There are so many industries from outside that are like bringing in their products over here. NAB, all these people, they're selling helter-skelter, and academicians especially, they trust blindly these products because they are the ones that are cited in other articles. They are citing these products that I'm referring to, right? So we don't have Indian products at all. So if there is any product at all you're bound to make, it's bound to sell. It's bound to sell. And it's bound to sell. I say it's bound to sell because the charges for making the product is so bare minimal, firstly, in India. We can't match up to foreign standards because, of the currency differences. They sell it for a bomb here, which we don't know about. And if at all we make products, let's say at a marginal cost, and there is no import duty because we are selling it in India,
Right.
I mean, there is a world of opportunities. Everything opens up, and the number of products we need, I would say, if there are 100 products required, we have not even met one. So now you think about it, 99 products need to be made. If there are a million products that can be made, probably we have made 100. That's all we have in India. So you think about it, anybody and everybody, any PhD graduate can have their startup and excel at it as long as they wish and will to. So that's something I can make it very clear.
I can feel it from your energy, your vibe, the way that
Okay.
you were expressing that. I can see that how excited you are about working
Yeah.
at the startup. So working at startup, I have two follow-up questions on that. Number one is, there are some traits you need to be in a startup, right? First, as you said,
Yeah.
it's very fast paced and it's very aggressive. And also, it's not structured in a way like you're a cog in the wheel kind of a thing where it's very structured. So, if you are someone who likes structure, shouldn't come to startup, right? So, what do you think are the traits that are required to thrive in a
Oh,
startup?
very good.
It's not many, all PhDs would like
Yeah.
to do that.
No, it's not everybody's cup of tea, Rima.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true. It's not everybody's cup of tea. And you put it very well for somebody who needs structure in their life. Let's put it
yeah.
that way. They need a secure job. They need to, have that Saturday and Sunday off, and they want to have like work and life balance going on very well for them. Yeah, definitely they'd find it hard. I wouldn't say it's impossible. They can, if they're smart, they can bring the very structure into the workspace. That's
Right.
possible, and I've seen a lot
Yes.
of people doing that as well. You
Yeah.
can bring the structure into the startup workspace as well. It's not really as unstructured as we think it is, but definitely it's not as structured as a MNC would be either. So if there is somebody who is really smart, they can bring in the structure. Now going to what are the skill sets one requires,
Traits,
I'd
traits
say,
as an individual.
oh,
Traits
the
as an
traits, the
individual.
traits,
Yeah.
traits. Probably I'd put the want to do something more, the want to excel, the want to, it's the want to, probably be amongst there out in the top. There is this hunger one has to have, right, to be able to grow. So I'd say that will be the number one thing if somebody has to enter the startup and excel at it. If they really have that, period, that's the place they have to be, and everything else falls underneath that, Rima.
Right.
We can always figure out where and which corner of the entire workspace we fit in, and how well we can get that part going, so that the rest of the parts are taken care of by itself, and thing moves along. It's a team effort, of course. It is unlike the MNCs where it's all structured, like you say, it's a pipeline, or another brick in the wall, that brick is taken care of. But here, it's a team effort. You have to get along with the team. So that's another trait you must have for sure. If there is this a person sticking out like a sore thumb, nobody like it. And it always happens that we all have our differences. There's no doubt whatsoever that there will be differences, and
Right.
now that is where again honesty comes in, to
Right.
be able to honestly speak about how you feel
Yeah.
about how things are going. If you
Yeah.
are felt enough, if you are felt whether or not you're valued, whether or not what you're doing is as in if you're enjoying what you're doing, and if it is fitting into the picture, all that has to be communicated very honestly. Otherwise, we are beating around the bush, because
Right.
it will come at a later point and it will, sort of strike back at our back. So I'd say honesty is also another important trait. And yeah, the hunger, I would put it on the top, Rima. And if somebody has this, I'll tell you right away, this should help you. You must definitely direct them towards startups, especially in India,
Yeah.
where sky's the limit.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Okay, I can relate to the hunger part because that's why me and you both are working over weekends too. Okay.
precisely. Yeah,
And you touched on one thing, which is in a startup too, you're also bringing structure to it as a PhD. I guess that's what was the foundation of doing PhD too. We started at a very unstructured place and then built something that shows you a structure, right? So one of my mentors says the cosmos emerges from chaos. So it reminded me of that. And my other question related to the startup is, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, PhDs have this ego, right? I did a PhD. I
yeah,
wouldn't work there. I wouldn't work here. I wouldn't work, right? So with this startup, they have this ego. Why would I do this small thing? But when it comes to business, the
right.
ideas are like these tiny ideas make a difference. And we don't realize that as PhDs. Your opinion on that, Ashutosh?
Yeah. My opinion is straightforward. If you make, let's say, toffees,
Yeah,
everybody will buy it. The
yeah,
whole world will buy it. But
yeah,
if you make a machine that
yeah,
will, probably clean your glasses, lenses,
yeah, yeah,
the ones you're wearing,
yeah,
only a small niche of people will buy it.
right.
So it's the tiniest, the simplest, the most naivest of things that people want. That is
Yeah,
what is missing, and most
yeah,
of the times we complicate things as PhD students. It almost feels right for us to do complicated things, but
right.
in reality, what is needed, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So in
yeah,
reality, what is needed is really simple.
yeah,
The simplest stuff are missing. If there are a million products, like I told you, there are only 100 in India, and all of these 100 products are also simple.
mm,
And of the rest of the, almost a million products left, they are also simple, and these simple products aren't being made. So
mm,
obviously, that does come in. You put it very well, and it's not that I shouldn't be lying. It's not that I didn't go through it myself. There were
mm,
many occasions in my working career here in a startup as well that I felt that what I'm doing, I'm way more capable than that. I
right.
did
Yeah,
feel that. And
yeah,
that is when, instead of dwelling in those thoughts,
yeah,
I dwelt on, okay, if that is really the case, what more can I do over here where I am right now?
exactly. Yeah,
And that's when, I figured that I can bring more to the table based on what my skill sets are. That's what I told you. So
mm,
that's when, things started fitting the picture. And when you can honestly communicate with whom you're working,
mm,
that this is how you feel, this is what you like to do, and this is how you can help improve the entire place and things.
mm.
Uh, Again, you can blow up the roof. You can do a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Right, right. Okay, so I have my two last questions. And one
Yeah.
is, now that you had this entire journey of PhD, taking a 3 years career break, and then now into industry, what is the one thing you would tell yourself now that you wouldn't have told yourself 5 years back?
What's the one thing I tell myself now that I wouldn't have told myself 5 years back?
Yeah.
Or is it that you're asking me, if given the opportunity, what would I tell my 5 year previous self? Is
Okay, you
that what the
can do
question
that
is?
also. What would you tell your five
Okay,
years, like the person who you were
previous
five
self.
years back? Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really hard question, requires a bit of contemplation. I'd say that I'd rather go and pat his back, say that he was definitely performing well, and he was on track to achieve whatever he wanted to, and keep going,
Hmm.
because I thoroughly believe that it's the traits of the people, like you put it, that the psychology of the people that takes them ahead in their lives. If there's somebody hungry, they're bound to quench their hunger, isn't it? That's
Hmm.
the way it is, and probably I was
Hmm.
built that way. I feel happy I'm that way. So
Hmm.
I'd say just to keep going and moving forward, and not do anything different, not be scared about what is there in the future, because everything will obviously set right by itself. Probably I'd say that much, Rima. I can't think about anything better.
Okay. And what would be your one advice to PhDs who are number one? passing out in 2026, finishing in 2026, and also starting in 2026?
Simple. Ask yourself what you need. What is it that you truly, truly need? Because you can't have the best of all worlds. You can't have the experience of living abroad and wanting to be in the industry as well, right? I'm just making up some odd examples, of course, but you must understand: is it that you want to generate revenue? You want to make money? Is it that you want to be a revered scientist, be somebody great in your field? Is it that you want a secure job and have a work-life balance? And these are basic questions, basic of basic questions. If these aren't put right, Rima, it's like, wearing the first button wrong. All the rest of the buttons you are going to put on are going to be wrong. So I'd say wear the first button right and everything will fall in place by itself.
Okay, that's a good one to put it, where the first button right and everything falls in place.
Yeah.
And though I asked, these are just the last two questions, but then you sparked another thought in my mind, which is about security, right? Ashutosh, you have been mentioning that go for a job, like if you're looking for security, you had been mentioning this line. But do you feel that in 2026 and beyond, there is anything called security? Because I believe the only certainty now is uncertainty. So you need to get used to how well will you handle uncertainty. What's your opinion there? Is there any secure job as such?
I love it the way you put it, that, the only way to have security is to embrace unsecurity,
Yes.
that's the way it is. And that has always been the case, Rima. It's just that we haven't seen it. That's all. There is no such thing as security. You go with it and see, eventually you're going to get what you deserve. There is no doubt about that at all. If you're a smart chap, you're bound to get what smartness deserves. If you're a hardworking chap, you're bound to get what a hardworking chap deserves. There is no doubt about that at all. Whatever work you're going to put in for that, whatever you deserve, you're going to get. So better to focus on that part rather than the security part.
Right.
Again, like, it goes back to the previous question, the same thing. You said the fundamentals right, over that everything gets built by itself. It's like the basement of the building. If that is strong, the building will definitely not collapse whatsoever. So I'd say it's very, very important to understand what we want, really.
Yeah.
And once we have understood that and be the person, whatever it is required to be in that situation, and everything else will fall in place. The security will come up by itself automatically, I'd say.
Yeah, I think this was a very apt question to end on, security, because your own career trajectory entirely so far has been about exploring uncertainty, taking some risks that others wouldn't have taken, the 3 years career break, and then getting back into an industry job within 2 years, that too as a principal scientist, figuring out ways to position yourself in places where you can maximize your skill sets and traits. So it has been wonderful, wonderful knowing you. And I truly believe that your story is going to give a great picture of how PhD should be in 2026 and beyond. Thank you, Ashutosh, for sharing your story. And it has been great talking to you.
Thank you so much, Rima. If I can have the concluding remark, which is that, you truly own this skill set also of having to clearly understand what people speak and go ahead with the most apt questions that will sort of help everyone when they do get to listen to whatever is being asked. So, thank you so much.
Yeah, I call it listening skills. Thank you for pointing that out, Ashutosh.